Hey there, friend. Thanks for tuning into this very first episode of season 2 here at the Between podcast. I'm thrilled you're here. Hey, if you're new around here, first let me introduce myself. I'm Matt Mattson. I'm the host of the Between podcast, and I'd strongly recommend you go back and listen to some of the episodes we recorded in season 1. Of course, you don't have to. This isn't like a serial crime-solving podcast or anything like that. Truthfully, I'm like incredibly proud of the sacred conversations we shared in season 1. Sacred conversations about, well, sacred conversations. That's the point of this podcast. We had such incredible guests, authors, creators, innovators, and a wide array of people who dove deeply with me into conversations about the intersection of faith and human connection. You can expect more of the same thing in this upcoming season. We might not be doing the same weekly episode releases. Our quantity and frequency may be a little decreased relative to last year. Every single week was kind of a lot. But we are going to have wonderful, holy, sacred conversations with some really cool people this season. So again, if you're new around here, Between is all about empowering you to create more moments of sacred conversation in your life. We believe deeply that our deeply divided and painfully lonely world will only actually be healed one sacred encounter, one holy conversation at a time. And listen, no matter what you believe, or even if you believe, you're welcome here. I don't know how to make that more clear. Like really, we've got people who listen and who are part of our community from a wide array of faith traditions. We've got people who are deeply devout Christian folks. We've got people who are deconstructing or have deconstructed away from Christianity. We've got a lot of people who are in the middle of that and who are trying to figure out what their Christian faith means in today's world, in the midst of their real life. And we also have people from a wide array of other faith traditions, of course. And I mean that very, very seriously. We've got folks when they sign in, when they join our email list, we don't ask a lot. We kind of ask, where are you in the world? And tell us a little bit about yourself. And when people tell us about themselves, they often tell us these really cool things. And it's wild, like the level of diversity that we've gotten. We've got people from all over the globe, every corner of the globe, nearly every continent is somebody's a part of Between. We've got people who are across the faith spectrum, from unbelievers, kind of strongly committed to not believing in a higher power. We've got folks there. I got folks who are Wiccans. We got folks from we got a lot of Buddhists who find their way in. We got a lot of folks who kind of dabble in lots of faith traditions and find wisdom and mystery and beauty in a wide array of faith traditions. We got Jewish folks and we've got Hindu folks and we've got folks. Anyway, we got a lot of people from a lot of different spiritual points of view. And that's one of the best things I think about what we're doing at Between is we are opening the door wide, and we're not trying to convince people to change their mind once they get inside. We're just kind of curious about them. And we want to learn about what their faith tradition, what their background, what their spiritual truths that they feel inside their soul, what do those things teach us, me and you, about how we can be better at creating more sacred moments of human connection in our lives? How can we apply all that ancient wisdom to the space between ourselves and the next person we encounter? Because that's kind of where the rubber meets the road in our human life. So anyway, you're welcome here. And curiosity and uncertainty, that's our starting point. We don't have a doctrine to drill into you or a set of theological requirements for you to meet. You're just welcome here, and we want to learn about you. Okay, so we don't have a guest today on this episode of the podcast. This is episode 1 of season 2. So this will be a little short mini episode, a conversation maybe just between you and I, or I guess I'm doing most of the talking. But I do want to talk about something really important, something topical, something of the moment. Don't get sucked into the vortex. Don't be bamboozled by the rage bait. Don't be brought down to the level of those who are throwing mud at each other. Yeah, we're in strange times. And yeah, my friend, it is important that we stand up for what's right. It's important that we live out all the things our spiritual teachings and our deepest beliefs have asked us to live out when it comes to justice and caring for each other. But do not get sucked into the vortex. Don't be siphoned down into the mud pit. The mud pit is not where real life is. The mud pit is not where you will make the impact you want to make. You'll just end up feeling dirty and tired, and you'll end up looking just like the people you're throwing mud at. Social media, and maybe most media, wants you to be angry. It wants you to shout and yell about politics and oligarchs and whatever the issue of the day is. Meanwhile, your neighbor is lonely. Your neighbor is hungry. Your neighbor is struggling with a broken family relationship, or they're terrified that they're not going to be able to make this month's rent payment, or they're trying to not disappoint their kids, or they're praying that the addiction doesn't take over their life again. Your neighbor is real. I'm going to say that again. The rage bait, mud pit, the anger machine that the world is trying to draw you into, that's make-believe. That's a distraction. Your neighbor is real. Your neighbor is real. If I had one prayer for our world right now, it's that we'd turn our attention from our screens and from the shouting and anger machines, and we turn to our neighbors, remembering that we can find God there. Do you know how many immigrants live near you, like on your block or in your little subdivision or in your apartment building, or I don't know, within a 1 or 2 mile radius around you? Do you know how many trans folks live there? How many people who have had an abortion? How many Republicans, how many Democrats live in that little area right around you? Do you know? Probably not. Neither do I. Most of us are so bad at our up close and personal world, but we are more than willing. In fact, we're happy and proud to make big, broad, sweeping claims about the bigger issues at large. I sometimes think Between is a ministry against abstraction. I sometimes wonder if what God was really doing in those stories about Jesus, when God showed up in the dust and the pain of a real human life, maybe God was reminding us to get our head out of the clouds, to get our eyes off of abstract things and to focus in on the reality of the humans up close in our real personal world. Jesus didn't arrive as a newspaper publicist. Jesus didn't arrive as a political operative. Jesus didn't arrive as a talking head on a 24-hour news channel or the owner of a major social media network. The stories of Jesus are stories of personal conversations and interactions. The stories of Jesus are stories of one-on-one healing, like one-on-one crying together and praying together. And they're stories of small groups of thoughtful, committed citizens, each helping each other and healing each other in the face of an oppressive, abstract empire. Your neighbor is real. Maybe the best way for us to show up at a tumultuous political moment in our world is to, at scale, by the millions, all of us all at once, just focus our attention on the neighbors right in front of us. Your neighbor is real. I saw this quote the other day on the internet. It's from a book I read years and years ago, and I think I need to pick up this book again. It's from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Letters and Papers from Prison. It goes like this. Bonhoeffer says, "We are not simply to bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself." I'm going to read that again. We are not simply to bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself. Maybe instead of raging in the comments section of whatever internet site we're on, or maybe instead of getting mad at the guy in the big truck with the flags flying on the back of it that just passed us on the highway, maybe we're supposed to recognize the machine we're all trapped inside. And maybe we're supposed to drive a spoke into the wheel. Here's what I think that means. Lean further into each other. Lean further into our neighbors and our enemies and our family members and our coworkers and our strangers on the street. Lean in. The biggest and most effective spoke We can drive into the wheel of the societal rage machine as one forged from love and curiosity and understanding and empathy. Even the worst people in history were just people. And even the worst people doing the worst things to the most innocent among us today are just people. They are our neighbors. They are real. They are lonely and disconnected from the warm embrace of God. One time, years and years ago, I found myself really disheartened by a fundamentalist evangelical Christian religious experience I found myself as like an observer of. I wasn't being hurt by it, but I could see others who were being manipulated and trapped by a machine they didn't know they were inside. I was watching this experience and I was feeling, like deeply disheartened by what I saw. Then I had the most obvious epiphany. It was like one of those spiritual aha moments that sounded more like, duh. Like, why didn't I think of this before? I realized I could evangelize too. I could be an evangelist for togetherness. I could be an evangelist for the sacredness of human connection. I could be an evangelist for curiosity and radical acceptance. I could be an evangelist for equity and justice. I could be an evangelist for a love-filled, fear-free faith in life. I could be an evangelist for mystery and wonder. I could be an evangelist for the wisdom that we can pull out of all love-filled faith traditions. I could be an evangelist for peace. And maybe right now, I'm trying to be an evangelist for all of us to get up close to one another. I'm trying to be an evangelist for a world in which we don't see each other as abstractions, but we get up close and personal and inhale deeply the humanity of each person we encounter. Blessed are the peacemakers, Jesus preached from the mountainside, for they will be called children of God. Peacemaking in our time, I believe, starts and ends with recognizing the sacredness of our moments of human connection. Peacemakers understand that the space between ourselves and the next person we encounter is the sacred ground upon which we can commune with God and find our way out of the messes we've gotten into. Blessed are the peacemakers. I really believe that's what Between is all about. Empowering and supporting peacemakers to go out into their lives and rebuild the culture we crave, one sacred conversation at a time. This season on our podcast, I hope you will hear examples of that, of peacemaking. I hope you hear curiosity and authenticity and vulnerability. I hope you sense the importance of each conversation, not just the ones you hear, but the ones you have in your own life. Thanks for listening. And be sure to check out all the stuff we're producing here at Between. Hey, a big thing that we're trying to do is to get folks to gather together and discuss our Between messages. You could discuss this podcast episode, for example. We call these Between groups. And I'd love it if you, yes, I really do mean you, would try to organize a Between group. Let me know if you do, and I'll try and send you a free gift, or we can get on a Zoom call together and talk about it. And if you need some training or preparation or a little confidence building, go to our website and you can click and you can literally schedule a training. You can sign up and show your interest in starting a Between group. I want to help. Go to between.church, and there you can also check out our weekly 5-ish minute sermons. You can find a link to our Substack. You can subscribe to our emails, of course, and our social media. And we have this new personal text-based ministry where we text each other back and forth in real life. And we got events at our website. We got a lot going on at Between, and I am just so thrilled to have you here as a Betweener. Okay, that does it for this episode. Episode 1 of Season 2, my favorite church is the space between people. Now go with God's love and create the church between.